We became interested in understanding decision making and how healthcare providers can support families in making decisions for these critically ill infants when in doing our studies around quality of life of children undergoing intensive treatments for life-threatening illnesses, we learned that it's very difficult for families to make these decisions at any one point in time. And most of the studies that have been done have been more retrospective, where they ask families after the fact. And so we were interested in understanding how the trajectory of illness and the treatment trajectory come together to require parents and physicians and nurses to make decisions for these infants at a particular point in time, and what factors come into those decision making. The reason it's important is that we know from the literature that in this particular population, multiple types of decisions are required. Decisions to initiate treatment in the first place, decisions to escalate treatment to different types of technology that we have available, decisions to withdrawal support, and decisions to allow for the end of life to come about. And these decisions are very difficult to make because we don't always have the kind of data that would say with 100% certainty, if you do this, this will be the outcome. We know now from the literature and from our caregiving to families that over the long term, difficult things can happen if they feel that the decision they made wasn't the right decision for their particular situation. So for instance, there's really great literature of parents of children who have had cancer and have died, where they regret pushing for that last round of chemotherapy and instead wish they would have just taken their child home. There's studies to show that these families can have complicated grieving patterns afterwards. And so if we feel that if we can better understand the trajectory of decision making as it interacts with the illness trajectory and the treatment trajectory, we might be able to pick out certain transition points over time where we can interact with the families in individual ways that will help them make a decision that is possibly easier for them to live with long term. And so the problem is that the main method of analysis in case study research is exploring the data for patterns in the data, visualizing the data, looking for trends and pattern across time. And the existing software programs and graphing programs are not sufficient for the multiple types of data that we have in a study like this. I think Zhenli counted it that we had 100 different types of data sources that are converging in to give us this picture of this trajectory. And so there wasn't a software program available that would allow us to visualize in the altogether the patterns that we were looking for. And so we came to the Renzi Center, and we were introduced to Zhenli to help us design, or to have them design for us a software program that would allow us to analyze this data through visualization of the data in the altogether. Part of this process that has been really interesting is working with a professional from another discipline with the data that we have that we're very comfortable with. When he starts asking us questions about what would you like to look at here, what would you like to bring together there, it opens up new questions for us. Oh, well, we hadn't thought about that. Let us go back to the data and reorganize it in a way that will allow us to look at it this way. So it's just this iterative process in working with him that is so exciting, that it helps us. We're analyzing the data as we go, as he brings us this material, but it's also allowing us to ask new questions that we would never have thought of in the first place.
The data collected are heterogeneous data set with both a lot of textual data sets and also some kind of tabular data set, which is quite different from scientific data sets, what I've been dealing with. To understand the data and organize data before I can even visualize to present to my collaborator is quite a challenge to me. Every 2 weeks we have conduct the collaboration meeting, then we start to understand each other's language, the terminology, and they help me to understand the data. The iterative process of generating prototypes and renewing or refining that prototype is really helping me to get a hold of the data. The type of data collection has already drawn a lot of attention from other medical principal researchers from other medical principal people, and they are interested in the same way, similar ways of doing the case studies. And certainly, I can see that my product, my creation, shall be applicable to other fields within the medical case study to be used, to be widely used.